is and should be a touchdown. Here we go. Bryson Mars has got his back behind him. It is Jaquindon Jackson. Here's the snap. Bryson Barnes looking deep. He's got a man. It's caught! He's gone! Touchdown early! Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. I'm Cooper Naylor. And, folks, today has been a crazy day in the world of college football. And we're fixing to get into it, but, man, like I just said, just a ridiculously crazy day. So I'm trying to decide which story to do first, but, man, you got two big stories coming out of, and really, it's coming out of the East Coast is where our big stories are coming from today. So if you're watching this, whether you are watching it live or watching it on replay, do not forget, Saber Broadcast Network, we are trying to hit our goal of 100 subscribers by the end of the year. It is December 17th, meaning that we have exactly 2 weeks to do this. We have 2 weeks to get to 100 subscribers. So, folks, if you are not subscribed, please do so. We are at 93. We need 7 more subscribers. So, folks, please subscribe. We try to do our best content possible. So, we hope that you want to subscribe here on YouTube. On Rumble, we're getting pretty good. We got like 15 followers, but it's a good start. We just started at the beginning of the year. So, folks, follow us over there at Rumble as well. Also, follow us on Patreon as well if you haven't already. So, let's go ahead and start. Probably what's going to be the biggest story is this one. Michael Vick is taking a job at Norfolk State. Now, this is an HBCU, and I got to say this. This is what I want to start off by saying. Here in recent years, HBCUs have really gotten aggressive in saying, okay, we want a coach who has a big-time profile. So what does Norfolk State do? They go get Michael Vick. This is just following the same model. I believe it's, I think it's like Tennessee State or something like that, who has Eddie George. Deion went to Jackson State a few years ago. Those are some notable ones. So here's what I'm saying about this. You get Michael Vick. Yes, he doesn't really have a lot of experience as a head coach, but what this is telling me is that it's telling me that they are going to go by this model of, let's go get a guy who's got a big profile, who played in the NFL, and let's go recruit some guys to come play for him. I think this is a smart move if you're looking at Norfolk State, and you got a guy. Like I said, we don't know how this is going to go because he's never coached college football. He's been, ever since he retired from the NFL, he's been on Fox doing a pregame show for the NFL. So we don't know what his program is going to look like there at Norfolk State. But this does make it interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of people who, quite honestly, who may have never watched Norfolk State play a football game, who are going to be tuning in to watch them this coming football season. It means they will have a little bit more money coming in, which also in turn means that they could put more back into their football program to make it better. So, Michael Vick, I think this is an interesting hire. Like I said, I don't know how this is going to go. He could be the worst football coach in football, but we don't know how this is going to go. So, folks, this is interesting here. This is one to really keep your eye on throughout the remainder of the as we near the end of bowl season and get to the off season and just see how it goes. All right, next big story. Dave Clawson is resigning from Wake Forest. Now, he is going to become an advisor at Wake Forest. What does this mean for Wake Forest? Well, first off, you got a guy who was your head coach for 11 years, and notably, the late 2010s into the early 2020s was the best time for Wake Forest. Of course, Sam Hartman was your quarterback, who, I mean, y'all went to the ACC championship game once. Wake Forest there for a little bit was really an interesting football team to watch for there for a few years. A lot of people would tune in to watch them, and they were an interesting football team. These past few years really haven't been that great. So it's not as a shock that Wake Forest is going to get a new head coach. Him resigning though, he's 57 years old, and like I said, he's going to be an advisor. And I think this is something that I am not shocked, is that a lot of guys who's been coaching football for a long time, if they don't like the way that college football is going, then I think I've said this before, but like they're going to start stepping away. Saban was like the biggest and most notable head coach to step away, citing the reasons of NIL and everything else that's changed in the past few years for college football. Now, I'm not completely sure if that's Dave Clawson's reasoning. That only time can tell about why he's resigning, but it is a very interesting thing to sit here and see that Dave Clawson, he has stepped away. So definitely going to be interesting to see who Wake Forest goes and hires. From what I've seen, I believe Neil Brown is in the running. There's a couple other guys, but Neil Brown is the biggest name so far to be mentioned in the running for Wake Forest head coaching position. So we'll wait and see what happens with Wake Forest. Yeah, this is an interesting one. And Wake Forest, I think, would be an interesting football team to coach. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But Wake Forest now looking for a head football coach. All right, now let's turn to the topics that we were going to talk about. And so, here's a good one. Okay, so I do want to take this question right here, right quick, and it says, thoughts on the Jalen Mbakwe situation. Here's my thoughts, and that is Alabama as a whole has started losing a lot of players this offseason. And I mean, it's interesting how a lot of these guys have really started entering the portal. But this is interesting. 4 hours ago, Jalen Mbakwe reverses course on transfer portal, will return to Alabama. So this is interesting. Okay. So according to this article, apparently Jalen Mbakwe is wanting to get some offensive snaps as well. This is from a guy named Pete Nakos. This is, of course, looking online, just looking where you can go on Google and see the Twitter feed. But this is so yesterday he planned to enter the portal, but now has decided he will stay at Alabama. So, and I mean, I'm just looking at this. I'm just kind of scrolling through this for a minute, but that's definitely interesting to see because of the idea of him reversing course like that. That's interesting. Thoughts. I guess interesting, like I said, interesting is definitely the word I'd say for this. If he does get snaps on the offensive side of the ball, we'll see how good he actually is. Because I believe Alabama's lost a couple of receivers in the portal so far. But I believe, if I'm not wrong, Emmanuel Henderson has also entered the portal. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I believe he has. So I'm interested to see how this goes over. He's not the first guy. I mean, last year I think it was Caden Proctor who reversed course. He had transferred to Iowa, but then transferred back to Alabama. So, um, definitely interesting. Definitely a very interesting. Okay. So he's going to try to play both sides of the ball. Okay. So the last thing I'll say on Mbakwe, definitely interesting situation. If he can play both sides of the ball, I feel like Travis Hunter definitely has really made the two-way playing famous again. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. We'll just have to wait and see what Alabama's receiver core is going to look like next season. All right, let's move on. Miller Moss, and I'm fixing to get to the topic about Drew Allar, but Miller Moss, USC quarterback, he got benched partly the season, and he has made his way to Louisville. What's my thoughts on this? Well, at first initial thoughts, Louisville should be good with this quarterback. Like they should be pretty good. I'm not, and I mean, the other day, me and one of my brothers were having a conversation about, what we thought Louisville's going to look like next year. And I mean, really, and I think this is true, we're not truly going to know what these teams are going to look like next year until we get to about July or August and summer, there in the summer, fall, whatever camp you want to call it, when that starts taking place. That's when you finally get an idea of like, okay, here's the teams that are going to be really good. Here's the teams that aren't going to be really good. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for Miller Moss. This guy, if you watched him play at USC, I think he's a great quarterback. I think he is able to make some throws that not a lot of guys are willing to put to risk and throw. I like him, and I think he's able to be mobile enough that if he needs to scramble and make a play, he can go make a play for you. I would say, as far as his build, is a lot like Bryce Young, and so he's a little bit smaller and he's not a big guy, and so he's going to be interesting to watch throughout the remainder of the season. Miller Moss definitely, though, transferring to Louisville is going to be interesting, like I said. And I mean, it's not like he's traveling to a tough conference. Honestly, you're going to an easier conference than where you were at the Big Ten. So, depending on Louisville's schedule, they could be really good next year. But depending on their schedule, they could be really bad. We're going to have to wait and see, like I said, until July or August to really get an idea of what these teams are going to look like. But Miller Moss, definitely, I think, if you're Louisville, I think you just picked up a really great quarterback. Maybe the best quarterback in the portal. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. So, now, let's turn our attention to Penn State. Drew Allar will be returning to the Nittany Lions next season. This is a big story because also you got to keep in mind, backup quarterback Bo Pribula has decided to transfer out. I believe Pribula announced he was leaving before Drew Allar announced he was going to stay at Penn State. So this is interesting because of this. One, what do we think there may have been a conversation between Allar and Pribula for this outcome? Quite possibly there could have been. Two, was it that Pribula announced he was transferring and then Allar saw that and he's like, okay, I may just stay one more year and help Penn State, possibly, depending on if they win the championship this year, have a chance to go back-to-back for national champions. That could be a thought. But I think ultimately, if you're Drew Allar, I think the big thing here is that you realize that your draft stock was not going to be great because, yes, you were maybe one of the top quarterbacks, but this cycle of the quarterback class is not not great, in my opinion. It's not really that great. And so this was an opportunity for him to go back to college and maybe gain a little bit more experience, but also improve on some of the things that he struggled with. One thing I saw from the Big Ten championship game that he did that I feel like he does need to fix, and we'll see how he does in the playoff, and that is sometimes he would have this ability to make some wild throws, a lot like the sidearm Patrick Mahomes throws that are more baseball-esque. But then he would try some of those against Oregon, and it would just he'd shoot it way over the head of his receiver, or it was way too short. That's got to be cleaned up. He's got to work on his accuracy. If he can do that, he's going to be fine. But Drew Allar is definitely a guy that going into next year, he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in college football. And I think Penn State should be fine next year. I mean, they go 10-2 every year. And so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Penn State. But, I mean, if you're Drew Allar, I think this is a smart move. Go back to college. Bo Pribula, definitely interesting because he's a guy who's sat for 3 years behind, I believe he was third string for Sean Clifford, now backup for Drew Allar. He's waited 3 years. So he's waiting on that opportunity to go and be a starting quarterback. So he's going to go find a place to start. So we'll wait and see. Best of luck to Bo Pribula. And so we'll wait and see. All right. John Mateer. If you don't know who this guy is, you're going to know because he was the Washington State starting quarterback last season. Incredible quarterback. I watched him last year play against Washington. He has a great way to sit in the pocket, make some passes down the field. Great arm. He's a great quarterback. Now, why is he expected to transfer to Oklahoma? Well, here's why. The guy who was his offensive coordinator at Washington State was hired to go to Oklahoma and be the offensive coordinator. John Mateer most likely saw that, and he's like, okay, I may go follow my offensive coordinator. Now, of course, I don't know if this, and I mean, somebody in the comment section can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this has become true that he has decided to transfer. But Mateer is in the portal. He hasn't picked a spot yet. Let's see. Michigan is. There's an article about why Michigan should target him. Apparently Miami's in the running. Now, Miami definitely would be interesting because, losing Cam Ward, going to get a guy like John Mateer, second straight year of going and getting a Washington State quarterback, that'd be interesting for Miami. But if he goes to, I'll say this, I think Oklahoma definitely would be a good place for him. Oklahoma's looking for a quarterback. And here's the question with Oklahoma is, can you really trust Michael Hawkins Jr.? He did okay, not great last season. So we'll just have to wait and see what Oklahoma decides to do. Of course, they're looking for a quarterback. And so Mateer, we'll wait and see where he goes, but definitely interesting to watch where John Mateer goes to. And then final transfer portal information before we get to our ball game picks. Jaheim Oatis. He was an offensive lineman for Alabama. He is transferring to Colorado. What do I think about this? Well, first off, I feel like if you're Colorado, this is something you've been waiting for, is to get a guy who could be really good on the offensive line. And so you're getting a guy like Jaheim Oatis, who played at Alabama. He played for, I believe, if I'm not wrong, he played for Saban 1 year, then Saban retired, and then he played for DeBoer. He didn't really, and if I'm right, I don't think he really got the playing time that he wanted. So he transfers to Colorado. I think this is going to be great. I think Dion can do a great job of coaching him. I think this is a great move for him. Colorado, and it's all going to depend on who they start at quarterback next season, and then what does the receiving core look like, because you're losing a lot of receivers. Plus, you're losing the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter. You're losing Shedeur Sanders, most likely, to the NFL. Colorado's offense is going to look totally different. And so we'll just have to wait and see what it looks like. But Jaheim Oatis, first off, going to Colorado, I think it's a good move. I think it'll be interesting to see what he does on that offensive line. I believe, I mean, this is just me, but I believe he's a day one starter for Colorado. I don't think there's any question. Colorado will start him, I think. So that's definitely interesting. All right. Now, if you've been following me for the past week or so, you know that I've been picking all these bowl games. And so, of course, without a doubt, we are going to get into these picks. Of course, I've been going through the ESPN Capital One Bowl Mania Challenge. And so I have picked 24 of the, I believe, 36 bowl games outside of the college football playoff. So definitely going to be interesting to see who I pick today. So I'm going to go ahead, go full screen with my ESPN Capital One Bowl Mania Challenge. All right, so we got East Carolina, NC State. Definitely interesting ball game here. NC State really interesting to see. They are 6-6, and that's mainly because they've had a little bit of a struggle. They began the year with Grayson McCall as their starting quarterback. Of course, that didn't end well because he ended up getting hurt in the middle of the season. He medically retired from college football, and since then it's just kind of been rocky for NC State. East Carolina 7-5. I mean, pretty good season. In this game, I'm going NC State because I just feel like, ACC against American, I'm going to take an ACC team all day. Okay, first off, you see the Valero Alamo Bowl right here, BYU and Colorado. Now, you may be questioning me, okay, they're two Big 12 schools. Why can they be playing against each other? First off, they did not play in the regular season. So that is that's something to note. They didn't play in the regular season. Secondly, what the contract stated is that it has to be an affiliation of Big 12 versus Pac-12. And because of the way the contract was set up, Colorado still technically could take that Pac-12 slot into a bowl game. So that's what they did. So you got BYU against Colorado for the Valero Alamo Bowl. Definitely interesting here. Really, here's the question. And again, this is what I've been saying, is that depending on Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., Will Shepherd, all these guys, depending on whether or not they play, is going to determine the outcome of this game, I believe. BYU, if I'm not wrong, I feel like they're going to have the majority of their offense play. Defensive-wise, I don't know if I really have enough. I don't know if I have enough confidence that Colorado's defense can be any good in this game. BYU, almost the same kind of deal here. I don't know. I mean, off of my gut, I would take Colorado, but again, it just depends on who plays. But yeah, I'm gonna just go Colorado just to give them their first 10-win season in, I don't remember when's the last time they had a 10-win season. So yeah, take Colorado. Then you got Louisiana Tech and Army. Now, interesting note about this game. Army originally in the Independence Bowl was supposed to be taking on Marshall. Marshall was not going to renew head coach Charles Huff's contract. He walked and went to Southern Miss. Literally, I think they said the majority of their team entered the transfer portal, meaning they did not have enough players to play in a bowl game. Do you hear how ridiculous this is? They did not have enough players to play in a bowl game, so now they had to forfeit the game. Louisiana Tech, a 5-7 school, will take their spot. I'm going Army. They're going to be mad that they lost their big rivalry against Navy. They're going to take it out on Louisiana Tech in this game. Give me Army. Music City Bowl, Iowa and Missouri. This is an interesting ball game, everybody. Iowa, of course, they are a really good defensive football team. Offensively, they've gotten better. I'm not truly sold on them yet. I'm going Missouri because I just feel like Missouri's offense is going to be too much for Iowa. You got Alabama and Michigan. I'm going to be honest. If it's going to come down to who's got the better players in this ball game, I don't think it matters that Alabama's got a bunch of players transfer out. I got to go Alabama. I don't see Michigan really having a chance against this Alabama football team. Of course, we'll wait and see because you never know what's going to happen. Michigan, big thing here, they got to run the ball super effectively. If they can run the ball effectively against that Alabama defense, I feel like that is the kryptonite to Alabama this season. They haven't done great against teams who can run the ball. Go back and watch Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Watch the way that they attacked Alabama's defense. That will be the kryptonite. If Michigan can hone that in, and that's what they did against Ohio State, they ran the ball effectively. Watch for that in this ReliaQuest Bowl. Louisville and Washington. Definitely interesting. If I'm not wrong, Tyler Shuck was the quarterback this season for Louisville. I don't think he's going to be playing this ball game. I'm not 100% sure on that. Definitely going to be interesting, but I got a gut feeling. I'm going Washington. I think Jed Fish will win his first ball game as the head coach of Washington. Then you got Illinois and South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina is just furious that they were not even considered for the spot in the college football playoff. They felt that they deserved to be in ahead of Alabama, ahead of Ole Miss, ahead of SMU. They deserve that last spot in the playoff. There's an argument, I guess you could have, that they should have been in. But at the end of the day, the committee, I think, really, if you look at the way the rankings fell, they're between 12 and 15. They really valued head-to-head. And Alabama beat South Carolina. Ole Miss beat South Carolina. So they favored that head-to-head. So this game, Lamar Sellers should be playing this game. He is a great quarterback, folks. I would say this. He would be a guy that if he entered the portal, a team like Alabama would look at him and be like, we want you to come to Bama. Like, that is how big and how good this guy is. Give me South Carolina. I don't think Illinois stands a chance in this ball game. Give me South Carolina. Baylor and LSU. This is an interesting ball game, everybody. Because Baylor has kind of had a quietly 8-4 season that's looked interesting. Definitely saved Dave Aranda's job. Another interesting note, Dave Aranda, the job he had before being the head coach at Baylor, defensive coordinator for LSU, and those LSU teams he coached, I believe he was on the staff that won the 2019 or the 2020 college football playoff national championship. So definitely knows his stuff around LSU. But personally, I just got to go LSU. I just don't think Baylor has much of a chance in this ball game. Again, I'm skipping the playoff games because I already chose my bracket, so you already have an idea of what I'm going with. So Gator Bowl, Ole Miss, Duke. I got to be honest. Duke had a great season, but give me Ole Miss. I just feel like Ole Miss, again, Lane Kiffin, very mad about being left out of the college football playoff. Give me Ole Miss. They'll come out just furious. North Texas and Texas State. I'll admit I didn't really watch these teams very much this season, but Texas State, I'll give them the edge. I think they probably will end up winning this ball game. Minnesota and Virginia Tech. Okay, I'll go with Minnesota. Here's why. It's going to depend on if Brosmer, their quarterback, plays. He is a really great quarterback. He really changed the way Minnesota played offense this season. They were a dominantly run football team until Brosmer came this year. They swapped their offense around. They threw the ball a lot more. Definitely very interesting. And then finally, you got the Bahamas Bowl. You got Buffalo and Liberty. Give me Liberty because I feel like Caden Salter definitely is a great quarterback. Definitely going to be interesting. I don't think he's playing, but definitely interesting for sure. So, all right. So I'm going to go to full screen with me. And so, got one last question to take. That is thought on the battle for the starting quarterback spot next season. And I believe talking about Alabama. Here's the thing. And I think there's a lot of questions for Alabama. I think it's Keelan Russell's the freshman that's coming into Bama. I believe that Austin. I mean, I don't think Austin Mack really has a chance at getting the starting job. You got Ty Simpson. There's another guy that I remember hearing that had a shot at the starting job, but I can't remember who it is. Someone that's already there in Tuscaloosa. Dylan Lonergan's already in the transfer portal, so you don't have to worry about Lonergan being in this race. I'll be honest. I think it's Ty Simpson's job to lose. I really think that his ability to just sit in the pocket, be a pocket passer, will be big for Alabama. And I think I've said this before on the channel, and that is that the quarterback that really had a lot of success with Kalen DeBoer, go back and watch Washington last season. And you had Michael Penix Jr., who and if you remember, he had some injuries there in he had some injuries at Indiana, transferred to Washington. He had to become more of a pocket passer. And that, I think, helped. I think that really did help Penix become a really good quarterback. I think that helped the offensive style Kalen DeBoer wanted there in Washington. So you look at Alabama next season, I think a guy like Ty Simpson who can sit in the pocket, be a pocket passer, and pass the ball first is going to look really good for Alabama. Question I have, because Justice Haynes is gone from Tuscaloosa, are you going to give Jam Miller the ball next season? I think that's big, because I think if Alabama can effectively give Jam Miller the ball, have Ty Simpson sit in the pocket, and make the passes when needed, this Bama team will be scary good. That is my truthful, honest take on Alabama this season, is that Jalen Milroe was really, he did not make things easy on Alabama this season. I think it's the inconsistent play that Milroe had that really damaged Alabama this season. And quite frankly, I think that's why they missed a playoff spot, because of his play. So, and there's a lot of other things you could talk about, but excuse me. But Alabama, definitely interesting to see what happens next season with them. All right, folks. That is pretty much all I have for tonight. Again, if you're just joining me or if you're watching on replay, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We are at 93 subscribers. And like I've said before, we are trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year, which is in 2 weeks. And plans are in 2 weeks, December 31st, we will be live for the Fiesta Bowl, which will be part of the college football playoff cycle. I believe Boise State's will be playing in that game. So I'm excited to do that game, first and foremost. But not only are we going to do that game, but I plan to keep going live until about midnight Central Time. So it's going to be a long stream. I can already tell you that. I'm probably going to have a headache, but hey, I'm doing it for the views, and I'm doing it for you to give you some great content, folks, because hey, when it comes to college football, we're trying to do the best possible content you can have on YouTube, because you can go watch ESPN, but sometimes the ESPN people, it's the same talking points for hours and hours, and I think that if you can find somebody independent, they got better opinions on football. So yeah, happy that you have joined us here tonight, and of course, we'll see you again later. Good night, everybody.